Otaku Faithful, thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my Episode 1 review and first impressions of Hunter x Hunter right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, and finally here to bring you all a new anime review and first impressions video. And this will be my review of Hunter x Hunter Episode 1 entitled Departure and Friends. Now, for those of you all unfamiliar with this series, this is the 2011 remake. This is actually the second anime adaptation of the manga series by Yoshihiro Togashi. This is his second popular manga series. He is also the creator of my second all-time favorite anime and manga series, Yu Yu Hakusho. For those of you all who have yet to see my anime favorites Yu Yu Hakusho video, annotation to that video will be right here. Please feel free to check it out. However, Hunter x Hunter is a series that has garnered the reputation of being on many hiatuses, seeing as how Togashi was suffering with illnesses and suffering with personal matters during this series production. And this actually led to the cancellation of the first anime series. So in 2010, when Hunter x Hunter started up again, I believe it was 2010 when the manga started running again, Madhouse decided to go ahead and release a second anime adaptation. Now, this adaptation is supposed to be more faithful to the manga and is supposed to streamline the events of the manga series, much in the same way of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, Dragon Ball Kai, and the new Sailor Moon series. So, seeing as how this series has finally made it on US television, because this past Saturday was actually the premiere of this new series on Toonami, I decided now was as good a time as any to go ahead and check it out. So what I'm going to do is give you all my thoughts on this episode and then give you all my first impressions on what I think of the series so far. Now, Departure and Friends, I'm going to go down this checklist I have to pretty much determine whether or not it was a good pilot episode. I believe that there are certain elements that an episode, regardless of if it's an anime or if it's a live action TV show, should be able to tackle within its first episode so that us, the viewers, can get the ball rolling and get a really good sense of the series as a whole. So, number one, let's start with our protagonist. Our protagonist is Gong. Gong is a 12-year-old boy who, now let's talk about his objective. He decides that he wants to become what is known as a hunter. Now, in this universe, in this story, hunters are described, usually categorized in one of three major groups. You have your big game hunters, who they are the ones who go out and track down elusive, massive animals of prey. So I guess you can go ahead and compare this to maybe Toriko, because I know in that series that character goes around, travels the world searching these elusive creatures. The second group of hunters is known more of like treasure hunters. These are people that go to uncover great treasure and they're looking for great, mythical riches, if you will. So this would be like your Indiana Joneses, your Laurel Crofts, your Nathan Drakes. These are the treasure hunters. And then finally, the third major group seems to be bounty hunters, and these are people who track down elusive criminals, dangerous criminals, so on and so forth. So Gong decides that he wants to become one of these fabled hunters. Now, that brings me to the third checklist. Why? What is his motive? Well, we learn in this episode that apparently Gong's father is a world-renowned hunter and that he left Gong when he was just an infant to go and pursue this career. So Gong wants to find out what is it about being a hunter that is so alluring that my own father would leave me as an infant to go on this quest to become one. So he wants answers. That's his motive. All right. Now, why this day? What is it so special about this day that we decide to start off the story here? Well, this is the day that Gong actually fulfills a bargain that he made with his aunt, who is his guardian, that if he can land the Lord of the Lake, which is a huge elusive sea creature in his hometown of Whale Island, this is a feat that the only other person that has managed to do it is his father. If he can land this fish, then she will go ahead and allow him to leave home to become a hunter. And this is the day he finally nabs him. So at this point, Gong decides, now here's the fifth thing on my checklist. Is he a proactive protagonist? Yes, he is, because Gong takes the initiative to finally land this fish, and then afterwards he wastes no time leaving Whale Island and he gets passage onto this ship that is supposed to bring him to the first stage of what is known as the Hunter exam. Now, we find out on this ship that apparently the Hunter exam is an evaluation that anyone who wants to be a hunter must complete, and that there are thousands upon thousands of candidates who want to become hunters and want to take this exam. We find out that the voyage is actually the first step of the exam, and the captain is the first mentor, if you will. His job is to go ahead and trim the fat, weed out all the people who clearly can't cut it as a hunter, and by doing so, he sails his ship into this horrendous storm. Now, we find out after the storm, or rather midway through the storm, that 3 candidates have actually risen to the top. The first being Gong, of course. The second is Kurapika. Brief story on him. Kurapika is the last of this clan that were wiped out by this Phantom Troop, which is a group of bandits, a group of highly wanted bandits, completely wiped out his tribe, and so, of course, he's wanting to seek revenge. He wants to become a hunter in order to apprehend them. So, we got our first supporting character, we got our character's motive, and we have their objective, and we have their motive. Good. Now, the third and final candidate is Leario. Leario seems to be some type of businessman, some type of gentleman who decides he wants to become a hunter. Why? Because he wants the riches. This is supposed to be our treasure hunter for the series, I'm assuming. So, number one, we know what his objective is, and we know his motive. Now, we also learned that Kurapika and Leario, they exchange words, and of course, this is supposed to lead to blows. And I love that Gong is the one that actually mentions it in the episode, that he points out that because of what makes them so angry, it has to do something with what they value, what's important to them. So Kurapika is offended when Leario says, okay, I'm going to rid your clan. I'm about to take you outside. I'm about to handle up on you. This is going to be the last of your filthy bloodline. Kurapika's response, you take that back. So we know Kurapika, what does he value? He values his family. He values their legacy. He values their lineage. He values their reputation. He's not going to have any type of disrespect on his family's name. Leario, on the other hand, is offended simply because Kurapika won't address him as Mr. Leario. Clearly, Leario is the older of the 3, and he is some type of businessman. Clearly, given the fact that he wants to be a treasure hunter, he values status. And so, yes, the idea that you do not address me as Mr., that offends me. So we know what he values. So already, even with our supporting characters, we have objective, we have motive, and we have what they value. All right. And so pretty much the episode ends with all 3 of them passing the test and move on to the second phase of the Hunter exam. And that's where this episode ends. Now, did this episode pass the test? Did we cross all of our need to know? Did we cross all of our need to know goals? Yes, it did. With flying colors. With flying colors, we know everything we need to know about Gong. We know that he is a highly intelligent, highly intuitive. It seemed, what I find interesting about him as a character, especially going into his motive, it seems that he doesn't necessarily want to be a hunter just for the sake of being a hunter, nor does he want to be one because his father was one. As I mentioned before, he wants to know the reasons behind why his father would leave. And it seems like his interest in hunting comes more from the fact that he's just naturally good at it, rather than, oh, I just want to do what my dad did. Or at least that's the impression I'm getting from it just off of that first episode. And then even with Kurapika and Leario, I think that Togashi did a really good job. I think it was a really good idea that we created this trichotomy between the 3 characters, how they each want to go into what seems to be a separate major branch of hunters. And so now it gives us the opportunity to explore each one of those individual groups through those characters. They are our window characters into this world. So I think it did a good job with that. But as I mentioned before, because this is a remake and because this series is streamlining the events of the manga, it seems like we've managed to cover a lot of ground and get the ball rolling so that come into the next episode, we can immediately get into the next phase of this story. So I thought the pilot did a really good job at achieving that. And so pretty much, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with my first impressions. What do I think about the series so far? Okay, now granted, my expectations for the series, I guess you could say, were higher than average, just because this was a series I first heard about this like way back in high school. My big sister, who is actually a huge fan of this series, first recommended it to me back then. But at the time, I believe the manga was on hiatus. And at the time, I believe the anime was either just wrapping up or had wrapped up not too long after that. So I guess you could say that at that time, there wasn't enough incentive for me to want to jump into it. But once again, as I said, 2010, the manga comes back. 2011, this series drops, and now finally that has made it to Toonami. I'm watching Toonami currently because I actually like the lineup that they have right there, and bringing Hunter x Hunter on board. Okay, that was a pretty good choice, I think, and also because now we finally have an English dub, and I'm one of the anime fans that actually likes English dubs. I like to watch anime in my native tongue. I like to support English voice actors. So I thought now was as good a time as any to jump into it. So, I mean, I like the series. I like what I'm getting so far. I like Gong. I love the fact that we have a young character who is not obnoxious. That was the biggest thing. That was such a huge thing for me coming into this series. The main character cannot be obnoxious, okay? That's one of the main reasons why I've kind of left shonen anime and manga alone for the last couple of years, just because of that. And he doesn't have an obnoxious, gimmicky trope. He's not an idiot. He doesn't eat all the time. He doesn't have a silly catchphrase or anything like that. He's not overly energetic or hyperactive, almost as if he has ADHD or some shit like that. He doesn't have any of those things. Now, I have heard it said one criticism against him is that he's overly naive. Well, given the fact that this is a 12-year-old who spent their entire time on a small town island, that's believable for me. I mean, hell, let's keep this in mind. Talking about another 12-year-old anime character, Aang. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, Aang was highly naive. That's just more of a mark of his age and less to do about himself as a character or any type of fault in his characterization from the creator. So, okay, the fact that he's naive doesn't bother me. But all those other things. Also, Gong seems to be a little bit more mature than most other protagonists his age in other anime and manga. And speaking of maturity, the fact that Kurapika and Leario could completely drop their fight in order to save someone who goes overboard during the second part of the storm, and that after they do that, after they save that shipmate and Gong himself, they completely drop it, and they apologize. They apologize to each other. That shows such a level of maturity that I think we don't see often enough, especially when it comes to popular shonen anime and manga titles, because these are properties that are meant for, late adolescents, early preteen boys, and I feel like a lot of time creators sort of either dumb things down or they dumb things up so that it can appeal to that demographic. And you don't have to do that. You can tell a good, compelling story without undermining, without dumbing down any of your characters. They can actually act like real people, and they can act like, they have some sense in their head. So I appreciate that Hunter x Hunter doesn't fall into those same tropes. Now, as far as the overall objective, what could potentially be the conflict, the plot of the story, I mean, just this idea of hunters, it is broad enough and vague enough to really go into some interesting territory. Now, to what degree in which that'll happen, I'll just have to wait and see. But for the most part, I do like what I got in that first episode. I really do. I will be checking out episode 2. I mean, if nothing else, I'm going to give it my standard 3-episode gauge. Typically when I get into an anime series, if I'm not feeling it within the first 3 episodes, I won't bother with it. Right now, I'm willing to go ahead and check it out at least for a couple of more episodes. So that pretty much wraps up my Hunter x Hunter episode 1 review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. In the comments below, please share your thoughts on this episode. But for those of you all who have already seen this series, because we are getting this rather late, I just remembered earlier today, matter of fact, that this series is already on Netflix. So for those of you all who have already seen the series, please do not spoil anything for anyone who has not checked out the series yet. Please leave a comment, spoiler free, for those of you all who this might be, hey, for some of my viewers, this might be the first time you've ever even heard of this series. So if you want to go ahead and check it out, I will be keeping up with it on Toonami. Haven't decided yet if I'm going to check it out on Netflix yet. But like I said, in the comments below, share your thoughts on this episode and you can go ahead and share your thoughts on the series as a whole. Just please, no spoilers. And for those of you all who actually do want to see me review this weekly, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think about me reviewing it weekly. I'm still on the fence about that. I actually have to see how well this video does, you know, what type of engagement this video has, because I'm not even sure how big my anime and manga crowd is amongst my channel's demographic. So if you want to see more reviews, please let me know in the comments below. Thumb up this video if you like it, share it with other fans of this series and people you think would like to see any more of my reviews. And if you have yet to do so, make sure to subscribe to the OAW YouTube channel. Annotation is above head. So what's coming down the wire later this week? Keep an eye out. This week's discussion of the week, technically, well, no, it is supposed to be this week's discussion of the week. That will probably be up tomorrow morning because I'm going to record that right after I'm done with this. Flash returns this week, so my Flash review will be up tomorrow night. Last week's top 5, which should have been last week's top 5, that'll actually be up on Wednesday. Of course, Legends, that'll be up on Thursday. And then my Vikings mid-season finale review, that'll be up on Friday. With that being said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.